The ocean looked calm from the harbor of Calicut in 1498. Fishermen pulled nets from the water. Spice merchants argued over pepper prices beneath cloth awnings. Arab traders unloaded porcelain, silk, and silver from ships that had crossed half the known world. Then, strange sails appeared on the horizon. Tall wooden ships with massive white canvas drifted toward the coast, carrying armed Europeans who had traveled around Africa searching for something incredibly valuable: direct control of the Indian Ocean trade. For centuries, the Indian Ocean had been the center of the global economy. Long before European empires dominated world trade, merchants from Arabia, India, East Africa, Persia, and Southeast Asia moved enormous amounts of wealth across these waters. Spices, ivory, silk, gold, incense, and precious stones flowed between giant port cities connected by seasonal monsoon winds. Unlike the Atlantic, this ocean was not controlled by a single empire. It was controlled by merchants. And few merchants became more powerful than the trading networks operating between the Arabian Peninsula and India. Wealthy merchant families built fortunes so large that rulers depended on them for taxes, supplies, and political stability. In cities like Aden, Hormuz, and Calicut, merchants financed ports, negotiated treaties, and quietly shaped entire governments from behind the scenes. Their ships were engineering marvels. Huge wooden dhows crossed thousands of miles using wind patterns sailors had memorized for generations. Crews navigated by stars, currents, and seasonal storms. Entire floating economies moved across the sea, carrying enough cargo to make cities rich overnight. At its peak, Indian Ocean trade connected more people and goods than Europe's fragmented kingdoms could even imagine. But the system worked because it stayed relatively open. Merchants competed, negotiated, and paid taxes, yet no single power fully controlled the ocean itself. That changed when Portugal arrived. Vasco da Gama's arrival in India shocked local traders. The Portuguese were not entering the trade network as normal merchants. They came with cannons mounted on warships and a plan to dominate trade through violence. Portuguese fleets began attacking Muslim merchant ships, bombarding coastal cities, and forcing rulers to sign unequal agreements. Suddenly, trade routes that had operated for centuries were becoming battlefields. The violence escalated quickly. Portuguese commanders realized they did not need to control entire kingdoms. They only needed to control choke points. They seized strategic ports like Goa and Hormuz, allowing them to monitor ships entering key trade routes. Any merchant refusing Portuguese demands risked losing cargo, ships, or their lives.
Still, the old merchant networks did not disappear easily. Arab, Gujarati, and Ottoman traders adapted constantly. Some smuggled goods around Portuguese patrols. Others formed military alliances against European fleets. In many ports, merchants quietly financed resistance while publicly pretending to cooperate. The Indian Ocean became a giant economic chessboard where fortunes could vanish in a single season. Then, the Dutch arrived. Unlike Portugal, the Dutch turned trade into something even more dangerous: corporate empire. The Dutch East India Company was technically a business, but it had powers usually reserved for nations. It could build armies, wage war, seize territory, and negotiate treaties. Investors in Amsterdam poured money into the company because profits from spices were almost unbelievable. Nutmeg and cloves could sell in Europe for many times their original value. To protect those profits, the Dutch used extreme force. They attacked competitors, blockaded ports, and took control of entire islands in Southeast Asia. In some regions, they destroyed spice trees simply to limit supply and keep prices high. Merchant capitalism had evolved into militarized monopoly.
Yet even the Dutch struggled to fully dominate the ocean. The Indian Ocean was simply too massive, too interconnected, and too dependent on local merchants who understood its rhythms better than any outsider.
Gujarati bankers financed trade across continents. Arab navigators still guided ships through dangerous waters. Indian shipbuilders produced vessels European powers relied on themselves. Meanwhile, new powers entered the competition. The British East India Company expanded aggressively during the 1700s, slowly transforming from a trading operation into a territorial empire. British merchants learned the same lesson Portugal and the Dutch had discovered earlier. Whoever controlled trade routes could shape global politics. By the 19th century, steamships and industrial power changed the balance forever. European empires tightened control over ports, colonies, and shipping lanes. Ancient merchant families that had once controlled enormous wealth found themselves trapped inside imperial systems built by foreign powers. The open commercial world of the old Indian Ocean slowly disappeared beneath colonial rule, but its legacy never truly vanished.
Modern global trade still follows many of the same routes merchants used centuries ago. Oil tankers cross waters once filled with spice fleets. Massive cargo ships pass ancient port cities that once connected Africa, Arabia, India, and Asia long before modern globalization existed. The Indian Ocean was never just water between continents. It was the engine room of the old world economy. And for hundreds of years, its true rulers were not kings sitting on thrones. They were merchants reading the wind.